April 1912 was a time of boundless ambition and unshakable belief in human progress. The world marveled at its achievements, and nothing symbolized this better than the RMS Titanic, a floating palace and technological marvel of its time. It was hailed as unsinkable, a triumph of modern engineering that promised an opulent journey across the Atlantic. But within days, this emblem of human ingenuity would become a haunting lesson in hubris and the fragility of life.
The Titanic was born in Belfast, Ireland, in the bustling Harland and Wolff shipyard. With a hull longer than 4 city blocks and towering as high as an 11-story building, it was the largest moving object ever built. Her creators, J. Bruce Ismay of the White Star Line and shipbuilder Thomas Andrews, envisioned her not just as a ship, but as a statement. A vessel that blended unmatched luxury with cutting-edge technology. Every inch of the Titanic was designed to impress. The first-class accommodations rivaled the most luxurious hotels, featuring grand staircases, crystal chandeliers, and private promenades. Even the third-class cabins were a step up from the usual steerage, offering clean bunks and hot meals, a luxury for many immigrants seeking a better life in America. But it wasn't just the extravagance that captured imaginations. The Titanic boasted watertight compartments and remotely controlled doors, innovations that gave rise to the infamous claim that she was practically unsinkable. On April 10th, 1912, the Titanic set sail from Southampton, England, bound for New York. Over 2,200 passengers and crew members were aboard, a mix of the world's wealthiest elite, middle-class travelers, and impoverished immigrants dreaming of a fresh start. Among the first-class passengers were figures like John Jacob Astor IV, one of the richest men in the world, and Margaret "Molly" Brown, a spirited philanthropist who would later become famous as the unsinkable Molly Brown. Meanwhile, in steerage, families clutched tickets that represented all their hopes for the future. For days, the Titanic glided across the Atlantic, her passengers reveling in the voyage. The first-class diners savored multi-course meals, danced to live orchestras, and marveled at the ship's amenities. In third class, passengers formed makeshift communities, sharing stories and songs from their homelands. But beneath the gaiety, warnings loomed. Reports of icebergs in the Titanic's path had been trickling in from other ships. Captain Edward Smith, nearing retirement, took precautions but maintained the ship's brisk speed. After all, the Titanic was on her maiden voyage, and arriving ahead of schedule would only enhance her glory. The night was calm, the sea eerily smooth, a phenomenon some sailors call a sea of glass. Under a star-studded sky, the Titanic sailed on. At 11:40 p.m., lookout Frederick Fleet spotted a dark shape ahead. An iceberg. Hard a starboard. The command rang out. The helmsman turned the wheel and the massive ship began to veer. But the iceberg scraped along the starboard side, its underwater bulk tearing through the hull like a jagged knife. The damage was catastrophic. Water flooded 5 of the ship's 16 watertight compartments, one more than she could survive. As Thomas Andrews assessed the damage, he delivered the grim verdict. The Titanic was doomed. The Titanic's crew acted swiftly, but the situation was dire. There were lifeboats for only about half the people on board, a tragic oversight stemming from outdated safety regulations and misplaced confidence in the ship's unsinkability. Passengers were ordered to don life jackets and make their way to the lifeboats. First-class passengers were given priority, while many in third class were left confused or trapped by locked gates meant to enforce class separation. Amid the chaos, acts of humanity shone. The ship's musicians gathered on deck, playing hymns to calm the frightened crowd. Captain Smith, facing the unthinkable, worked tirelessly to oversee the evacuation before retreating to the bridge, where he would meet his end. At 2:20 a.m., less than 3 hours after the collision, the Titanic's stern rose dramatically into the air. The lights flickered, then went out. A moment later, the ship broke in two and plunged into the icy Atlantic. The survivors, roughly 700 men, women, and children, huddled in lifeboats, shivering in the freezing cold. For over 1,500 souls, the frigid water became their grave. At dawn, the RMS Carpathia arrived, rescuing the survivors and bringing them to New York. The world was stunned by the disaster. Investigations followed, leading to new maritime safety regulations, including requirements for lifeboats sufficient for all passengers and improved iceberg monitoring. The Titanic's story has endured for over a century, a poignant reminder of both human ingenuity and fallibility. It speaks to our dreams of progress and the unforeseen consequences of overconfidence. Even now, the wreck lies 12,000 feet below the ocean's surface, a ghostly monument to the lives lost and the lessons learned. The Titanic was meant to be a triumph, and in a way, it was. A triumph of humanity's spirit, seen both in its creation and in the acts of bravery and sacrifice on that fateful night.